and fly. What? Now, go ahead. Was no ladies that when the big give out, sit in the corner with the mouth full got okay. Had you right back. Water ahead and checking the north.
These men are lining track in Mississippi. Using simple tools, they straighten the track where it is shifted out of place.
Why no hen dog tied to the tree? Ain't no crawfish in this lake. Let's fly and fly. You may join ahead. All right.
This is the lining track. 7 men labor hard to straighten out barely a quarter of a mile of track a day. This machine does the same job, but faster. One operator can line 3 miles of track a day. The new machine increases efficiency, but it also creates a hardship. 6 men are out of work. The place is the situation is common. Laboring people who used to work on farms throughout the South have lost their jobs to machines. Modern industry, recently arrived in the South, provides good jobs for those with education and technical skill, but not for the unschooled farmhand. With no place else to go, tens of thousands of the unemployed from the rural South, both white and black, but mostly black, move to the nation's crowded cities and look for work. Untrained for better jobs, those who find work earn low wages. Most of the newcomers find shelter in the city slums. Here the welfare check becomes a way of life, and hopes for the future grow dim. Trapped by a lack of training, confused and angered by failure, they remain cut off from the better life they came to find. Finally, frustrations born in southern fields explode in the city streets. The resulting chaos is part of a complex web of city problems that has been labeled the urban crisis. The roots of much of that crisis lie deep within the southern past. About 100 years ago, when the Civil War ended, Northern troops marched in a victory parade down Washington's Pennsylvania Avenue. Southern troops returned home to a devastated South. Many young Southerners never returned. More than 250,000 were killed, many thousands more wounded. Southern dreams of an easy victory had turned into a nightmare of defeat. At the war's end, some 4 million former slaves found themselves free, but in a ruined and hostile land. They lived in shacks on the land of their former masters, or migrated to the cities to work as servants or laborers. With slavery ended, the owners of plantations began paying low wages to have their fields of peanuts harvested, their tobacco cultivated, to have their cotton picked. Or they divided their lands into small farms and rented them to Negroes or poor whites for a share of the crop. This system, called sharecropping, impoverished the families that worked the land. Usually in debt to the landowner for supplies, the sharecroppers often found themselves penniless and still in debt at the end of a year's hard labor. Cotton was the big cash crop, and most Southerners depended upon it. In 1892, a small insect called the boll weevil appeared in the fields. It could destroy an entire cotton crop, and did so repeatedly. The boll weevil and chronic depressions in the cotton market brought poverty to thousands. Further problems were brought on by primitive farming methods and the continued replanting of tobacco or cotton in the same fields. The land itself was destroyed. Another resource, the forests, had attracted investors with but a single interest, an immediate profit. Entire forests disappeared. Repeated flooding in the Tennessee and Mississippi valleys brought more destruction, more poverty. Textile mills, lured down from New England by the promise of cheap labor, paid 75 cents for 12 hours' work. Workers in the coal mines of Tennessee, in the sugarcane fields of Louisiana, faced the same grim problems. Long, hard hours of work, low wages, with no way out. Then the Depression came in 1929. The South was hit hard. For many, there wasn't much to do but pack up and try to find work elsewhere. Those who stayed on found themselves trapped in deepening poverty. The years of misuse of both human and natural resources had taken their toll. By the 1930s, too many Southerners had been forced to submit to defeat, frustration, and failure. Today, reminders of the Old South still exist. Near Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the Mississippi River flows past old sugar plantations on its way to New Orleans and the Gulf. A few old mansions stand by the riverbank, but most are decaying. Sugarcane is still the main crop, but today the farms are mechanized and few workers are employed. Some sugar land has been turned over to cattle grazing. More has been sold. A strand of barbed wire is all that remains of one plantation, owned now by the Wyandotte Chemical Corporation. The change has been drastic and complete. From fields of sugarcane harvested once a year, to fields of machines producing chemicals 24 hours a day. From unskilled farm hands, mostly black, to skilled technicians, mostly white. From plantation shacks and black families suffering from hunger and want, to salaried workers, mostly white, with money in their pockets and a new car on the company parking lot. Similar changes have occurred all along the 250 miles of river from Baton Rouge to the Gulf. More than 150 industrial plants line the riverbanks, producing everything from chemicals to gasoline, aluminum to paper, fiberboard to tank cars. The total investment in new plants is more than $3 billion. In Baton Rouge, headquarters for the chemical industries, the Confederate soldier looks out upon some of the results of industrialization. The city is prosperous as never before. For some, especially those with enough skill and education to find a good job, times have never been better. But for the uneducated and unskilled, mostly ex-farm hands who have lost their jobs, the situation is different. This is the home of Matt and Elizabeth Banks and their children and grandchildren. Matt Banks grew up on a farm, has a fourth-grade education. He works part-time as a cleanup man on construction projects in Baton Rouge, earns about $60 a week. Elizabeth Banks grew up on a nearby plantation where her father worked as a sharecropper. She finished 3 grades of school. Since the house has no inside plumbing, George Banks carries in water for cooking and washing. There is no inside bathroom, no refrigerator, and not enough space for the 16 children.
How do you get all these people into one house?
Well, it's a problem, but we managed some kind of way. We got 4 beds Well, four sleeps in one, five sleeps in the other, and four sleeps in the other, and three sleeps in the back room bed. So that's where we split them up, and the baby sleeps in the baby bed.
What kind of work do you do?
I do housework. A housewife, I go from house to house and clean houses for white folks. And I go to work sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I get off at 2 in the evening, and then again I have to wait till 6 in the evening.
What are you going to do when you grow up?
Well, I like to drive a garbage truck, you know, when I get out of high school.
There's a lot of things that I want to do, and I don't have enough money to do it with. I want to try to get a bedroom set, really there, and I'm making a little money, but it don't be enough, because when I get through paying, I'll be a doctor bill and things, I don't have nothing left. Some little grocery, I don't have nothing left.
Some jobs, if I make 2 jobs in one day, I make $10, and if I don't make with one job, I don't make but $5 a day. Some jobs I go in, I have to work all day for $5.
If you could do anything you wanted to do, anything, what would you do?
Well, I would like to be a pilot. If I can do anything I wanted to do, I'd like to be a pilot.
Well, I love to go to church because I get some good feelings out of going to church, and then it teaches me a lot of things that I don't know. It teaches me how to raise my children, for one thing. And another, it teaches you that it ain't no other way you can get to see the Lord unless you live right. You have to live right to get to see the Lord again.
Well, ain't nothing for me to do but still work on, try to do the best I can, do what I can. But that's all I can do.
I go to Chicago.
Why?
Well, I just haven't never been there before. And I think maybe I'll go to Chicago.
Five 500 miles from Baton Rouge are the streams and rivers of the Tennessee Valley, a vast watershed that drains parts of 7 southern states. Since 1933, a series of dams has been built and operated on these waterways by the federal government. Through the locks of the dams, more than 17 million tons of freight pass each year. Water-driven generators on the dams and steam-driven generators built along the waterways supply low-cost electricity to 1.5 million consumers in 7 southern states. Where before, men earned low wages cutting timber or mining coal, today more than 5,000 industrial plants using Tennessee Valley water and electricity provide better-paying jobs for 400,000 people in the valley. At the Oak Ridge National Laboratory near Knoxville, some 5,000 people work to discover new knowledge in the field of atomic energy. Basic research in nuclear physics, biology, chemistry, metallurgy, health physics. Such are the daily concerns of people at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Only 50 miles away, yet in another world, is the home of the Perry family. Isolated in a mountain valley, the Perrys live much as their grandfathers did. There are 8 children in the family. 3 have dropped out of school. Money has been short since nearby coal mines shut down and logging companies moved out. Like many other families in the mountains, the Perrys face an uncertain future.
So this is my home. I've lived here about 41 or 42 years. And I don't like it. Out of the old houses stand still, and old sawmills still been working. Mines are running. Mines used to run every day here. There's about 4 or 5 different mines on each side of the mountain. And it was good. We had good neighbors. Everybody was good to us. If one gets sick, the other go in and help the others. And we just got along good as long as there's a good community up here.
What happened to the people in the valley when the coal gave out?
Well, they all moved out, moved on, you know, and a lot of the old ones, you know, they're dead and gone. Most of the old people that lived here in this camp, they done passed on, you know, and
What effect does this shortage of money have on you and your family and children?
Well, we could have more to wear and maybe more food if, you know, if it's necessary. And maybe we could have a good house, you know, to live in. And, we could have lots of things if we had enough money to do with, you know.
How does the future look?
Well, it's looking dull.
What can be done about it, I wonder?
I don't know what can be done. It looks like there could be something, some work brought in here or something or other for the men to do. Because they've done cut all timber out, and they're going further and nearer getting it now. And so they just ain't nothing to be done. All the factories are away from here. Used to, you see, we could have all of our kids at home with us. And now they have to leave home, leave their state, and go in other states to live and to get to work. And that's what hurts the people that got children off from home.
What do you hope for your children?
Well, I hope for them to have more than what they have had growing up. After they get grown, I hope for them to have more and not have to, you know, do like I've done by raising them up.
I want to leave, and I don't want to leave.
Why?
I don't know, 'cause I always lived here, I guess.
Of the regions of the United States, the South, despite much industrial progress, remains least advanced. Low family incomes, high rates of infant mortality, high rates of illiteracy. In the areas indicated, these social ills occur at rates well above, often twice the national average. More people suffer from poverty in the South than elsewhere in the country.
I go to Chicago.
I want to leave, and I don't want to leave.
For more than a generation, the big cities of the North and West have attracted poor Southerners in large numbers. Since 1950 alone, more than 5 million rural Southerners have pulled up roots and traveled to the cities in search of a better life.
Are you tired of clicking through the commercials? Watch commercial-free on Patreon. The link is below this video in the description box. And now back to the show.
Come on, loosen your touch. I let him too far. I'll take it easy.
At first, I hated this place. I won't lie about it. I really hated it. But now, I mean, I begin to like it better because the children were small and you couldn't let them out by themselves. And down home, they could get out, they could play, they could go out in the yard, and you didn't have to worry about them like you do here. And the first job I got here, I worked at MPL, making hypodermic needles. And I went in, he kept talking to me, and they told me to fill the application out. Well, I did, and he kept asking me all kind of questions. And he says, well, I said, you know, this work's hard, and it's this, and it's that, and it's the other. I told him, I said, well, I'm not afraid of work. And I said, furthermore, I said, I don't think it's a bit harder than working on the farm or doing restaurant work. And he said, well, have you done them? I said, yes, sir, I've done both of them. So he said, well, I said, I don't think it'd be too hard then. And really, it wasn't that hard. The other girls said it was, but to me, it was a gravy train from working on the farm and in the, like I said, and in the restaurant.
Well, my problem was knowing the factory, knowing the work in the factory. And that's everybody else's problem, too. It's rough to even fill an application out if you don't have the education. But most of the factories, they got precision work. And that's where it's rough at.
For a while there, everything was going pretty good. But now then, since my husband's been sick now, and for the last month. He's only worked about a couple of days. So it's really been rough on us for that.
I paid $8.80 a month rent there. Here I had to pay $100.
And the children, there's always begging to go back home. So we'd load up, we'd go back, and stay a while, we'd come naked. So we'd come back.
Go back on the mountains, you pick berries, have picnics, and the scenery is the most thing on it.
I got kids in the house, and they keep, when I get up to chase the rats, they run in the kids' room. They think it's from the basement. They crawls up into the walls. They start fighting.
Into your bedroom?
That's where they at now, in the ceiling.
They're in the ceiling over the bedroom?
Yes, the ceiling fell in.
Whatever affects the ghetto, in my opinion, affects the entire nation. And the failure of the nation to see this, they are faced with the unrest around the country. And until such time they are ready to reckon with this very serious question, the entire nation is going to be in great shape. If they can't kill rats, they can deal with the slum question.
Theory. Violence is a part of America's culture. It is as American as cherry pie. American taught the black people to be violent. We will use that violence to rid ourselves of oppression if necessary. We will be free by any means necessary.
The people are angry with the police for the brutality. People that are tired of the police will get you, beat you up, pull you out of your car. Like this unit here, the tactical mobile unit. You never see them patrolling a white neighborhood. You never see them. Anytime any Negro men are riding down the street in their cars, they will stop and make them get out of their car. First, you take anything out of their pocket, tear the car apart, and then if they feel like they might even take them down to the jailhouse and maybe even beat them up. And so this is the reason I feel that the people are doing this today, trying to show that they are angry against the police brutality.
Lower these prices and give us better jobs. And all this might be cut out.
Yeah, to give them a job so they have some money to buy what they want. I mean, they can't get what they want by just walking the street. So that nothing for them to do but take it.
I don't condone their actions for the way that they're acting now, but I mean, it's one way that they have of striking back.
Yeah, and you might say that they're just trying to get something for nothing because they have been getting robbed by the prices, the raise. Every time you get a raise on your cost of living where you work, the cost of food goes up, your rent goes up, your clothing goes up. So what are you going to do? Pretty soon you won't have any money. More money you make, the more you got to pay for food. The more you got to pay for everything.
Well, most everyone from president to man on the street is asking that big question. What caused it? Why did it happen?
Well, I assume that it's obviously a mixture of reasons, the classical reasons of deprivation of housing opportunities, employment opportunities, educational opportunities. Those obviously are all involved. Then you have some local matters which are causing some frustrations that particularly pertain to this area. And then you just have people who take advantage of situations in order to vandalize for their own personal purposes. And I don't think we can solve it in a year or the next year or even perhaps in my lifetime. It's something that with us to stay, we're going to have to keep working at it. We're going to have to set aside a certain amount of the resources from both the private and the public sector to continue trying to find the answers to this, to continue trying to give the underdog and the underprivileged the same opportunities that the average American enjoys.
A century after the Civil War, the South faced the burden of its past. But today, the nation shares it. Every deprived child is a potential burden on northern. The crisis of the cities is to be every child of a poor southern family must have adequate food, medical care, and education. New opportunities must be created within the South. so the rural poor will not flee to the already crowded cities. And all of the poor, as they begin the long climb out of poverty, must have reasonable hopes for a fair share of the prosperity now enjoyed by most Americans.